Oh God, it's so exciting. Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
Hello, the Curse of Dam.
It's the best finishing score we've seen at 5-star level.
That was our elo coming into the competition.
Eventing manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
Still a great day for Ireland.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
And it's time to get on with the show. Welcome to the Inside Badminton podcast in association with the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast. And my goodness, listeners, have we got a treat in store for you, because over the next few months, as we build up to the 2022 edition of the Badminton International Horse Trials, we will be taking you behind the scenes. We have missed badminton so much over the last couple of years, and this is a series that has actually been in the pipeline for a couple of years as well, because we recorded the first episode back in February 2020, just before, of course, everything changed. And that show is going to come in a couple of months for you. And let me tell you, it is one that you won't want to miss. More on that a little bit later. But first of all, I'm going to set the scene for you. So I'm currently in Badminton, in the village itself, sat in the hub of all things Badminton Horse Trials with two people who know more about Badminton Horse Trials than basically anybody else, I think, that there is. So we are going to be quizzing them on all things badminton 2022. First of all, Jane Tuckwell, event director. Jane, you have been involved at badminton for nearly 50 years. It's just absolutely extraordinary. And it is the most special place. I got goosebumps as I was driving in this morning.
It is special. It's a very special place. And I am probably one of the luckiest people on this earth to have worked in such a place for so many years. Every year is special and every year is different. And to be involved with something that so many people have a love for and look forward to is a real privilege.
It is, and we're going to talk about some of those different moving parts of it that go towards making it so special and so iconic in a moment. Andrew Tucker, commercial director, also with us. Andrew, your relationship with badminton again goes back. Both your parents rode here. You yourself have been involved here for approaching 20 years. But as commercial director, it is your first event, finally, in 2022.
Yeah, it's a little strange because obviously I started working for badminton in June 2019 and yet haven't run an event yet. So it's a little strange. I know a lot about badminton, having obviously done the sponsorship here for sort of 18 years plus, but I'm quite looking forward to getting stuck into actually organising a little bit more.
It is going to be back with a bang, and we're going to talk about a little bit about what is in store. Jane, first of all, just set the scene in terms of your role, because event director, it encompasses a lot of things. Just give us a little insight into what your life and your role at badminton is.
I think the easiest way to describe it is like being a juggler of a lot of balls all in the air at the same time. And the most important thing, I think, as a director is to delegate and trust the people that you've got working for you, which I have terrific trust and incredibly lucky to be surrounded by such a good team and such a good team of volunteers. And I always say the most important thing in a job like this is when you're looking for somebody to take on a role is that you choose the right person. And if you choose the right person, they fit into the jigsaw, they get on with it, and you really don't have to worry about that thing again.
It is a team, isn't it, at the end of the day, a team effort. Andrew, from your perspective, commercial side of the sport, you know, that is a hot topic of conversation. We're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail. But how integral is it to the success, the longevity, the future of badminton?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously a huge part of the event. There's at a commercial side. We're on a greenfield site, so there is a huge amount of costs that we have to think about, and then we also have to think about the various different revenue streams sort of coming in to cover those costs as well. So I get a lot of grief from the team sometimes when I ask for numbers, which sometimes they don't appreciate, but it's important.
It is key. Okay, we've got to talk about the last 2 years, because it has been the toughest 2 years. Jane, first of all, from your perspective, we rewind the clock. This time, 2 years ago, you know, it was all systems go for 2020. There were changes afoot. It was your first year as event director, having been involved for so many years previously, but a new role in that respect. It was a slightly slightly, that's the understatement of the year, listeners, it was an absolute shock to have to cancel. The decision was taken ultimately out of your hands at that stage because there was absolutely no way the event could go ahead. How gutting, from your perspective, the entire team worked year round to make badminton happen. How difficult was that first initial decision?
Well, as you've just said, the decision was really out of our hands. It became more and more obvious over probably a length of 10 days that there was only one way the event was going to go. I think one is disappointed oneself. Of course one's disappointed, but because you're so engrossed in the cancellation and everything else, in a way you're kept busy. But my disappointment was for everybody else. I mean, you think you've got your horse to that moment. It's 6 weeks before badminton, and to have to pull the plug on those people was the most horrible experience. Trade stands, livelihood, people that have saved up all year to come to badminton, all the local community with the bed and breakfast and the shops and the hotels. So that was my disappointment, not for myself, but entirely for everybody else.
For everyone else. And actually that, again, I guess transpires then into 2021 because everybody hoped that, all systems could be go and the event was back on track. But in perhaps a slightly more difficult turn of events, that became, I guess, a harder decision to have to make last year in terms of being able to say, do you know what, actually we can't go ahead.
Again, the decision, it was a joint decision with the local council, health and safety. I think it was a horrid decision in that we had made the decision we were going to run. We were very positive because you either have to be positive or negative in this job. You can't be wishy-washy. We told the trade stands in November that we weren't going to have them because we didn't want to lead them up the garden path if anything went wrong. I hope and pray we cancelled just about in time before the horses, were at their last bit of fitness and the riders could make other arrangements. But the reason we cancelled was purely because at the time we were meant to run at the end of April, beginning of May, was just as we all know when lockdown was just on the verge of ending and people were really champing at the bit to get out again. I think it's really easy to forget that at that time there was no vaccine. We were in a very, very different world. Our concern was it wasn't what we could control. We could put in this and put in that, but we couldn't control what was going on all around us. And basically, if people had arrived and come to the event, we would have been shut down. And if we had brought COVID into the area, which again, it's very easy to say, but that was low risk. It wasn't low risk then. We've got a very good relationship with the whole area, and it was just 2 weeks too early. I honestly do think if we'd been the end of May, we would have been fine. But it wasn't to be, and that was gutting. Actually, the second one was that was horrible.
Really difficult. And I think one of the key things about this Inside Badminton podcast series, and something listeners that we try and give you, is that real inside sight on what goes on behind the scenes of events, what it takes to make them run and the people that it takes to make them run. There was a lot of criticism. I think people were obviously frustrated for the last couple of 18 months at this point of their lives had been up and down and they didn't know whether they were coming or going. And from that perspective, looking back, it's so easy to say, could we have done this, could we have done that? Would you have done anything differently? Did you feel like you could have done anything?
No, there was nothing different to do. We had, by the time that decision was taken, we had looked at every alternative and we had looked to see if there was in any way we could run it. But the risk was just too great. And, I think at the end of the day, would we have been thanked if we'd got through 1 or 2 days dressage and had to pull the plug? I honestly think it would have been a worse scenario. But please, may we never have that moment again, particularly for those coming and the competitors. And, the calls with the competitors when we cancelled, my heart went out to them. It really did. And because I ride myself and things, and, the disappointment when you can't do something, when you've had the build-up, and, it's immeasurable. And I totally understand that, but we were where we were. But let's put it behind us and start kicking on again, for goodness sake.
I know, that's the thing. I feel like, you have to talk about the lows, because we're about to go into what we hope will be a real high. You know, it makes us realise, and one of the things for the last couple of years, as we've said time and time again, makes us realise, you know, what these events mean, what it means to come to badminton, what it means to be able to see some of the best horses and riders in the world, and for those spectating to be able to have a front row seat, for those watching at home to be able to enjoy it all with us, even though they're not here in person. So we're going to talk now about 2022, because all systems are go. I think, listeners, when you're listening to this show, the box office is going to be open very shortly. 5th of January?
Yes, first week in January for those that have on our mailing list and booked before, and open to the public the following week.
There you go, listeners. First week of January, that is when the box office opens. Andrew, in terms of the logistics of running an event such as badminton, you know, Jane touched upon a few of them that sort of impacted the last couple of years. Just kind of give us an indication of the scale, because it is a greenfield site. It is enormous. There isn't the infrastructure to bring in all of these people.
No, it's very much a pop-up event. We are very lucky in that we do have, you know, some infrastructure in terms of some row structure. We have a very good fibre structure as well, which is, you know, makes a huge difference to on a number of levels, whether that's TV or Wi-Fi for trade stands, for all of those. But, you know, we are putting on an event for 180,000 people in a greenfield site. We have to bring everything in, from loos to tracking to fencing, water, everything. It's a huge undertaking, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of people.
How soon does that happen? Because obviously Badminton Estate is a working estate. There's all sorts that goes on there. So how soon before the horse trials at the beginning of May does it start to take shape?
So the actual build starts sort of mid-March.
Yes.
Mid-March is when we'll start to see the first contractors on site. Harry Verney, who's our site manager, we'll see him in sort of February time. But his main time on site is in March, and that's when it really ramps up.
It is a massive undertaking. There's lots and lots of different moving pieces of the puzzle. Jane, planning an event of this scale, because I've no doubt, and if you can hear the dogs in the background, listeners, that is another insight for you into the badminton offices, because I swear there's more dogs than people, Jane. Possibly.
Not quite yet. But, anyway, going that way, and they definitely are the bosses, that's for sure. But no, the planning for an event like this, well, to be honest, it starts the day before the current event almost. You know, you get to the April and you start seeing things and you think, gosh, we actually, you know, next year, having seen that now up, next year we could improve on that. So the planning is 24/7, just runs into each other. And we have quite a lot of debriefing meetings straight after the event, and then we have a period of tidying up the event that's just happened. And then really it starts planning in earnest again nowadays, really from July. You know, we all like to think we don't start till after Burghley, but it's no longer true. We really are kept busy all year round. And I always describe it as, I bump into people and they say, but you can't be busy now, don't be so stupid. But if you think about it, that with the box office opening at the beginning of January, all the planning and the costings and everything else have to be done well before that, because before you do, you have to set your prices, etc., until you've been in touch with your contractors, blah, blah, blah. So I always describe it as making Andrew always pulls my leg about this, but I always describe it as making a huge snowball up to Christmas. So all the ingredients, what you're going to need, go into a pot. And then after Christmas, that snowball goes down the hill and you try and keep up with it. So yeah, it is huge. It is, but again, it's delegating it to the different people and just people's enthusiasm for it. You know, I find quite often people are actually driving me because they want to get back on board, which is great. But I'm thinking, actually, no, I'm not quite ready for you yet. You know, just give me 2 minutes to get through step one. But it's lovely. I mean, it's we're just so lucky to be, surrounded by so many great, enthusiastic people.
I feel like I'm here, listeners, at the peak. The snowball is almost at its biggest because we are in the build-up to Christmas. This show is out at the beginning of January, at which point it's going to roll on down that hill and everybody is going to try and keep up because it is going to come around very, very quickly once we get into the new year. And let's look at sort of how it fits in to badminton as a whole? Because the horse trials have been running here, I think, since 1956.
1949.
49! There we go. Beg your pardon, Jane. Never, ever, ever
Is that
question.
part of your useless information sheet, Jen?
Oh, I know that one.
There is, honestly, that was the slip up. Can I say that? Can I rescue myself by saying I was testing you, Jane? Maybe not. We'll move swiftly on, listeners. But 1949, it has been a massive part of it. Obviously, we've had a few losses through cancellation, weather and foot and mouth, and obviously now COVID. But for the most part, it has been, here, part of the calendar every single year. How does that fit into the wider badminton estate?
Well, it's obviously an incredibly important cog of the estate, but it isn't the only part of it. And particularly nowadays, I mean, it used to be the only thing that badminton had going on the estate, apart from the fact it is also a full working farming estate. So the first thing it has always had to fit in with is the farming and the natural year of badminton. But nowadays, they have other things going on. There's a bit of filming going on here and there, and various other smaller events. So it's always been in the spring. And when we did get asked if we could move last year, and the answer was we couldn't, because for really about 3 reasons. One was that the fitting in with the farming at badminton. Secondly, fitting in with everything else that was planned to happen later in the year at badminton. And thirdly, to be absolutely honest, not to step on other events' toes, which I think is very important.
I think it is. Naturally, it's something that as an organiser, that, other people will have been going through exactly the same quandaries, on different scales, but it's still difficult. There's still a lot of people that care about their own events and making them happen. And that is a very, very valid point. What about the team? Because, hundreds and hundreds of people make badminton happen, but there's a core team that are here in this offices, led by the pack of dogs, which are brilliant listeners. Who is such a key part? Obviously, there's yourself and Andrew, but how many of you are here and sort of work full-time, year-round to make the event happen?
There's 5 other people in here. They're not all full-time nowadays, because again, funnily enough, we built it up with more and more people, which was absolutely essential at one point, because there was more and more literature going out, more and more to post, more and more phone calls, more and more this, that and the other. But suddenly and this is the sort of thing we've had time to reflect on in the time that we've been off, as they say, is that we looked at it, and because of everything is so electronic now, although we never diss those that don't want to go electronic, we are all inclusive, and long may that last at whatever level. But we suddenly realised that we didn't need quite so many. So we have Vicky Candy, who's a great person, who's in her first year as the main sort of
administrator.
Main administrator, exactly. And it's her first time in that role. And then we've got Alex Harbottle, who looks after the accounts and is going to take on the entries next year, which I've always done. So she's a very important cog. And then we've got another lovely girl called Rosie Latter, who started with us this time, and she'll be with us until May, and then I very much hope we'll come back again next winter, because that's what continuity at badminton. We've actually had, over the years, incredibly few employees, I would say, actually. And then in the box office, we have Delith Elmer, who has been here for quite a few years, 10 or 12 years, and she's just taken on the role of box office manager, which is a really important role, and she's being assisted by her daughter. And then we have various other people. There's a wonderful person called Pam Twizzle, who looks after all the officials' passes, and she'll start with us in January. And then, as I say, it's like a big family coming back together again, and each month, just another couple of people come in, and then that speeds up, and suddenly there's a lot of a lot of the old friends coming back, and it is like one big family.
We've got the workshop boys as well, who are a really important part. Obviously, they've been off for the last 2 years, but we sort of caught up with them recently, and they're starting in earnest now and really gearing up. And there's four of them that are responsible for painting posts, repairing program huts,
the famous scoreboard.
Yeah, all sorts of things. And they're a great crew as well, and really good fun to work with.
Actually, going back, Andrew, to what you were saying earlier about infrastructure, I think one of the things to mention is how lucky Badminton is to have its wonderful permanent stable yard, because that is we are probably the last event that the eventers in this country anyway get stabled in permanent stables on site, and that is iconic. And
they're not just permanent stables on site, are they? They are iconic. And they add to the occasion. They add to the whole feel of Badminton and what makes it so special. It's interesting, Jane. I'd pick up on something you said. You've reviewed how things work over the last couple of years, and everybody's working habits have changed slightly. Our life habits have changed probably significantly in some places. But actually, that's an important thing. That even though the last two years, it'll be 3 years when we get to the event, haven't happened, that there's still been so much work going on behind the scenes, and actually being able to take a step back is that silver lining to the very dark cloud of going, okay, well, what do we do? Why do we do it? How can we make it better? And I know that's something that you've all been working really, really hard on. Andrew, from your perspective, obviously from the commercial element, it is a key part in the event's longevity, its future, everything from that perspective. What is the model on which Badminton runs? Can you tell us a bit about that? Because I think it's kind of from an outsider looking in, it feels a little bit of that kind of unknown.
I guess the big thing is that we are not a traditional... our financial model is not like a traditional sporting event, like a big football event or a big rugby or golf event. Their main revenue stream would be broadcast, whereas for us, broadcast is a negative revenue stream. It costs us for us to be able to put the programme on the BBC. So we're much more, without giving too much away, our main revenue stream is obviously ticket sales, and then trade stands, sites, and hospitality sites. Sponsorship actually is probably our third biggest revenue stream, but a vital and very important one. And then an area which I'm sort of really trying to grow and to sort of almost have as a bit of a silent revenue stream is the sort of licensing, pouring rights, and generally just moving the event a little bit forward in terms of those new revenue streams. And I think COVID has really highlighted to us how important those sort of licensing agreements are to get the money in, even if the event doesn't run. So yeah, I think COVID has really given us a chance to really look at that and work out how we might do it. And similarly, with the sponsorship side of it as well, I think we're going to come on to it a bit later, but that we've really had a good relook at since Mitsubishi left us in 2019.
We can talk about that now, because Whitbread, 31 years I think they were involved in the event. Mitsubishi Motors, nearly 30 years. Those brands have been synonymous with the event. And so how, since 2019, how has that changed, and what can we expect to see in terms of partners moving forwards?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Two title sponsors in sort of the best part of 70 years is, I don't think I know of any other sporting event or sport that's ever had that, and it's a credit to Badminton really. But I think when Mitsubishi very sadly finished their sponsorship in 2019, it's a very different world that we live in, and you're just not going to get title sponsors that are going to hang around for 28 and 31 years respectively. So we wanted to try and find a model that was flexible, that would allow us to sort of not have all our eggs in one basket, because trying to find a big sponsor every 4 or 5 years now is really tough. It takes you probably 2 years, or maybe if you're lucky 6 months. It totally depends. So we wanted to go to a model that gave us that flexibility of having perhaps 2, 3, 4 bigger partners rather than just one. So we're very fortunate now in that Mars Equestrian have come in as our presenting partner, and they're a fantastic brand or a collection of brands really. And then we also recently signed Lightsource BP, which is a really exciting partner, obviously solar and renewable energy. So it's a really topical sponsor that we want to work with and do more with. So it's really just about keeping it flexible, I think, and understanding that at some point, hopefully, we might be able to find some other big partners to get to where we were with Mitsubishi.
I think you hit on a really good point actually there. The sport has changed massively. economic climate now has changed massively, even in the last 2 years. You know, things are very, very different. So therefore, commercially, you know, you have to adapt. You have to be able to look at things from a different perspective. When you look at badminton and you look at other sporting events, what do you take from other sporting events? What do you take from other sports as to what we can apply there in eventing and in the sport that we love?
Yeah, the big ones for me are the licensing and the pouring rights. I mean, you know, we have a huge crowd at badminton, so you know.
When you say licensing and pouring, just expand.
So pouring rights is that we give a drinks company the exclusive pouring rights to that drink. So, for example, Nye Timber sparkling wine is the only sparkling wine that is able to be served at badminton, and so they pay a fee to us for that privilege. Similarly with Thatcher's cider, they do that as well. So that's something that I introduced probably 2019, I think was the first time we started doing that. So we want to grow that into potentially other sectors, whether it's soft drinks or food. And then the licensing is using the badminton brand with other areas. So for example, there's a video game out there,
Equestriad World Tour.
Yeah.
Equestriad World Tour, which is obviously involves Kentucky and Burley as well. It's a really good way of getting the badminton brand out to audiences internationally, but at the same time we obviously take a license fee for them to be able to use badminton and the course and the event as part of that game. So yeah, it's just trying to look at other areas that we can use the badminton brand to get the brand out more in a sensible and controlled way. We don't want to obviously oversell the brand.
I think you don't want to oversell it, but I think also it's really important that the people that come on board have a feel for badminton, because if it's a good partnership and it's a fun partnership and each respects where each is trying to come from, it works. But if it's a square pin and a round hole, that's when it doesn't last. And that's longevity is, you know, it's never going to be 20, 30 years ago, or, you know, as Andrew says, but it is good to build up partnerships that stay with us. And
yeah. I mean, we're really lucky. Our retention rate of sponsors is really good. It's very rare that we have sponsors drop out. I think once they've come into badminton, they've understood the value of the event and our audience and wanted to stay with us. So we're very lucky.
I find both of those things really interesting. Again, it comes back, Jane, even, you know, you're talking about the length of the commercial partners that have been there with Mitsubishi, with Whitbread, and now with other partners coming on board in that respect, but also the team involved here at badminton. You know, there is a lot going on behind the scenes to make all of those things happen. And it tells the story, doesn't it? You know, if sponsors disappeared, if people came in and out of the office all of the time, you know, you can make your own conclusions from that. But actually badminton is, you know, it's one of the USPs. And in today's environment, it is something that is so, so valuable. And, you know, we all love badminton, we always find it special. But actually it's lovely to know that on the inside it's like that as well.
yeah, it is like that. But equally, there's another side to it. I was taught by my first boss, Colonel Frank Weldon, who I have to say we all in the eventing world should be internally grateful to, because it was he that first saw the possibility of commercialising the sport. I mean, he was way ahead of his time. And he had this wonderful saying of that just because it's worked for 20 years doesn't mean it will work for 21. So rather like with the sponsorship, like we say with Move Thing, you've got to always be looking to moving forward. And, you know, not one of my great things, but I hope people believe it when I say it. We do want people's ideas. We do want to hear what they're thinking, seeing, whatever, because especially when you've done it for so long, you certainly can't see it through new eyes.
Since before I was born.
Andrew's getting that in first. He was like, Jane's been here since before I was born.
Yeah, no, so, you know, I think, you know, and again, that makes people feel involved with the event, and I don't want to be the one to be seen sitting in an ivory tower and saying this is the way we do it and that's the end of it, because I think if people can, and it, you know, it's the same, we'll talk about the live stream and things at the moment, and if people have a sort of way of buying back into it in a sense, you know, then everybody has a feel for it, and it's all that sort of family feel. And
yeah, it's about evolving. I think, you know, the one thing, these events are not going to survive if they don't evolve.
No.
And Hugh Thomas before Jane, now Jane and I, that is where we need to be heading, is sort of always thinking 2 or 3 years ahead of where we're going to be. And I think people do, especially in the equestrian world, do look to badminton as to where are they going, where do we need to go. We're a bit of a flagship, so people want to follow us a little bit.
I love the saying, just because it's worked for 20 years doesn't mean it's going to work for 21. And I think that actually that's something that is very, very relevant. And I think, a lot of people care about badminton. How do people, how would you like people to kind of give their ideas and to give their feedback and kind of get behind the event? Because actually, public support in this day and age, we've seen it work on both flip sides of the coin. On the one side in a hugely, hugely positive way, and on the other side it can be extremely, extremely scary at times. So how can people sort of pitch their ideas and get behind it? And what do you need from the badminton fans?
It's quite simple. They can pick up the telephone or send an email. I mean, if somebody's got a thought, and if we say no to something, it's not because we don't like the idea, it's because when an idea comes in, they probably don't know the geography of what that idea sits in, and actually it won't work for badminton. But because that idea doesn't work, sometimes, quite often, another idea comes from that idea. I mean, I hasten to add, I don't want tomorrow to suddenly have...
I was going to say, listeners, just be a little bit selective.
No, but I think...
Jane's email address is going to be going ping, ping, ping.
No, I think, I just feel that... And actually, I always say, and Hugh was a great one for this, what's the most annoying thing is when people say to you 3 months after the event, or almost when you're going into the next event, oh, by the way, I meant to tell you, that didn't work very well last year. It is so annoying, because actually, if we'd known at the time, we can do something about it. All we all want is the event to evolve in the best way possible. And so listen to what people have to say, and hopefully that will help it along its journey.
A legacy that will be there for years and years and years to come, we hope. Okay, let's talk 2022 about what we've got in store, because I'm hoping, listeners, we're going to be able to get some inside info for you. First of all, let's talk cross country, because obviously Eric Winter is the course designer here, has been for a few years now, and he's, I'm sure, had so many ideas brimming in his mind, because he would have planned 2020's course, he'd have planned 2021's course, now it's 2022. Is that the same as 2020? Have there been changes? What can you tell us? Come on, Jane.
Well, it was never unveiled, the 2020 course, so I'm not going to unveil the 2022 course either, obviously.
Can you give us any sneaky hints?
Yeah, I can give you a sneaky hint that it will be very, very similar to the 2020 course as it was going to be. That is partly economics, because we have had a very incredibly difficult financial 2 years. Having said that, cross-country fences are no different to anything else that is not in constant use. If you use a cross-country fence every year, it gets titivated, it gets varnished, it gets sandpapered, it gets whatever it's done to it. These fences have sat and done nothing for 2 years, and we have actually, one combination has had to be completely removed. But it will be exciting. It will be badminton as badminton. It will not be a lesser badminton. And again, on that, I was talking to a rider the other day, and she was talking about it and saying, well, where are you going to pitch it? And I said, well, quite honestly, it's Eric's baby anyway, but if you won badminton and it was a very soft badminton, for the rest of your life, people will come up to you and say, well, you didn't really win badminton because it wasn't really badminton, was it? So we mustn't create that. So it will be badminton, it will be the full distance, it will be full up, but it will also have the alternatives, so that for those that have had a bit of a slow run coming into 5-star, they will be able to find a way round. And please, I would ask those to use their heads and make it a really good spectacle for everybody here and watching on the TV.
I think that's a really important point. It's very exciting. I think, listeners, I don't know if you feel this, but when Jane starts to talk about proper badminton, there's a twinkle in her eye, and it just feels, Badminton Cross Country Day is magical. It is tough. It is a 5-star. You know, it is meant to be that way. And it is, you know, the pinnacle of our sport in that respect. So we're looking forward to seeing what might be in store. I'll take the scenic route home, listeners, and see what I can see out of my car window. No, in all seriousness, though, what else is there in 2022 that is perhaps different, that you have made changes to over the last couple of years that people can expect to see?
Shall I kick off the tickets and I'll leave you to live stream? No, I think the biggest difference that people need to start taking on board now is that there will be no tickets for sale on the gate, no admission tickets to people or vehicles. We've taken this decision. It's a decision that has been in the back of the mind even before the pandemic. And I think this is just the last, again, it's, you know, something that's evolved over the last 2 years. And it's really to try and speed up entry into the park. And also, you know, I think there are going to be a lot of people next year. You know, I really hope there are going to be a lot of people next year, and looking forward to seeing each and every one. But also to just get a little bit of a handle in advance of how many people we have got coming, so that we can provide the right facilities, etc. It is a change, but I hope people will go with it and accept it.
And to be honest, I think we have become, in one way, a little bit out of practice of going places, and a little bit out of practice in, you know, what time should I get in the car to go to Badminton? You know, those things, think about them, listeners, because they actually, you know, we have all become a little bit more just out of practice, I guess, of going places, doing things, and kind of, you know, in that respect, think about it. But also, we've become better at planning. If we are going somewhere, we're quite accustomed to actually having to book it. We can't just rock up where we used to go and that kind of thing. So I think the two of those things married together, it makes sense. I imagine it will make it quicker to get in as well.
I would be very disappointed if it doesn't make it quicker. And
we've also got the new entrance as well, so we've invested in a whole new entrance as well to speed people's
new routine.
So yeah, that's another thing that we've done. Actually, it was due to be used for 2020.
Yeah, but there were things that I think actually, you know, if the event had run for the last 2 years, it would have been obviously the best. I mean, no way is anything better than that if that had happened. But equally, you know, 2020 was our first year. I think we've improved on things that we were going to do for 2020. We've had time to actually concrete them and present them fully, rather than maybe, you know, arriving at May and thinking, oh, you know, I just wish I'd put the last cornerstone into that project. But anyway, so proof will be in the pudding.
Watch this space. Andrew, Jane mentioned there the live stream is one of the changes that's been announced. Just fill us in on what can be expected in 2022, and because I think it's really exciting that people will be able to watch all of badminton.
Yeah, so I mean, in essence, it's not actually changing an awful lot. I think I mentioned earlier that the TV is currently a big cost to us, and so we have had to take the decision to offset some of that costs. And whilst the BBC will be covering badminton with their usual Sunday highlights programme, followed by the last 10 live, the coverage that was through the live stream and through the BBC Red Button on Cross Country Day will be through Badminton TV, which will be a live stream through the badminton website, which will be behind a paywall. That really is the only difference. I mean, it's the same production team that pulled together the badminton BBC programme, and I mean it's the same. The
stream is tested because it's the same stream that was used for 2019 when a lot of people.
Yeah, so we had 337,000 people go through the live stream last time, so we know it can take a big audience, which we really hope there will be. So yeah, it's going to be about educating people in that, you know, having watched it on the Red Button for a number of years. But we're working on that now with our comms team and a digital team to sort of make that the easiest.
And I think as Andrew's alluded to, that, you know, the cost of putting on this event gets larger and larger. You've always got the next thing coming in. The latest is the diesel, and that no longer can events use red diesel in generators. So you can imagine the difference in cost of running a generator on white and red diesel. We are lucky; we've got mains up to a point in the park. But I think also, you know, those that are unlucky enough not to be able to come to Badminton, it's their way that they can pay a little bit towards making the event as special on the TV as it is if you're here. You know, everybody's got to help a little bit, I fear.
It is, and you make a really important point just even on the diesel there. You know, that's going to go through all of your contractors, their subcontractors, everything. The ripple effect is huge, and that is one tiny element of it. We're seeing costs go up all across the board in lots and lots of different things, and I've no doubt that will, you know, come through. I find it really interesting, you know, from events I've been involved in and events that I've watched as a viewer, and it is a massive, massive expense, a massive infrastructure to put on a broadcast of an event. And the cost, as you've alluded to, Andrew, is huge. And it isn't something that you get paid very, very handsomely for, and therefore it's a money-making thing. It is about, you know, breaking even on it and being able to carry on offering the best possible product that you can do. I think it's really exciting that actually everything is staying the same in terms of the production team and the broadcasting perspective, because actually everybody's seen that, they know what they're going to get, so there's kind of the known quantity as such, and you know it works, which is a key thing. I mean, I'm just going to say, you know, my diary's clear, nudge nudge, wink wink, listeners. No, look, in all seriousness, it's a massive part of it, and it's a key part in everybody at home being able to watch it and enjoy it. What are you most looking forward to? It's been a tough old couple of years, Jane. You know, it's been a huge part of your life. What is the moment for you that you cannot wait for?
I think this is going to sound a rather odd answer, but looking at it from the end to the beginning, I am looking forward to the 2022 winner being crowned, because that means we will have had a successful and happy Badminton.
Top that, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm really looking forward to seeing those gates open and the cars rolling in. I look at it with slightly different eyes. No, I think Jane's right. I mean, to have everyone back, there is already a huge buzz, whether, you know, it's a trader phoning in, you know, even the contractors that are phoning are super excited about coming back to Badminton. So just having the atmosphere, for me, the big atmosphere is that first person going through the lake complex, and that sort of roar as they go through in that area, and the hairs on the back of your neck really, really go up. So there's just so much to look forward to, really.
Do you get a chance to enjoy it? Do you get nervous?
Well, I haven't had a chance yet.
Well, that's true. Okay, fair enough.
No, I don't get nervous, actually. I think if you did, you'd be...
You'd be a wreck.
I think partly is because you don't have time to. You know, that last month it's full on. It's all I get to say. I mean, it's 24/7 almost, and you know, by that stage you're living, breathing, eating it, going to sleep, thinking, right, you know, your brain's just going, and it's not about nervousness, it's about getting the job done.
Anticipation, adrenaline, all of those things coming together.
Yeah, rolled into one.
Absolutely. Look, it is so exciting to have Badminton back for 2022, and one of those shows, listeners, that we had recorded before lockdown hit, February 2020, will be coming up for you, and it is all about the live stream production of Badminton. Myself went down to London to meet with none other than Claire Boulding. You can only imagine how excited that made me. I tried very hard to play it cool, listeners, and I think I mostly succeeded. And Michael Cole as well, who's been a huge part of the production here for the last 15 years or so. So you'll be able to find out all of the ins and outs as to just what it takes to be able to stream an event such as this and broadcast it to the masses, and it is well worth a listen. So that will be coming up, but we have got so much more in store for you. We're going to talk to past winners, to people that are hoping to compete here this year as well, go behind the scenes and give you a real flavour, a real essence of what it is that makes Badminton so special. The hair stood up on the back of my neck as I drove in here on an entirely normal day in December. Just imagine what it will be like at the beginning of May, when Badminton 2022 is back bigger and better than ever. Look, Jane, Andrew, thank you both so much. We're looking forward to it. Good luck. We're going to be following the progress, but fair play to you, because I have no doubt, you know, it has been a tough couple of years. We can't underestimate that on so many different levels, but we're looking forward to having Badminton back.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to welcoming everybody back.
There you go, listeners. Put the dates in your diary. We will have everything badminton for you over the next couple of months, so stay tuned with us. But for now, that is all we've got time for. The box office is going to be open very shortly. You can book your tickets if you would like to do so, and we will be with you every single step of the way. For now, though, that is all we've got time for. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for listening to the Equratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.